Hey, I wanted to make a video and talk a little bit about young artist programs, particularly where it comes to singers, but really for anyone in the music field, versus creating your own projects. And while I certainly think there is a space and a time to supplement educational experiences that we might have with a weekly lesson, with a teacher, or in a university or college program, with a summer festival or another training program. There's certainly a place for that. I think that we often get stuck as classical musicians thinking, what do I do next? Maybe an answer is to spend some money and go to a program. Especially, we think about some of the really high profile programs, Aspen, right? Or Tanglewood. These programs that come with a lot of prestige, that are often very, very competitive, that often have, let's be honest, pretty high application fees. And then if you get in, maybe you're lucky enough to get a scholarship, but more likely you're going to spend quite a bit of money on tuition, on housing, on getting yourself there, not to mention the fact that if you have another job, you're not able to keep going with that, right? So, one of the things I'd like to offer to you as an idea instead is to consider what could you do with some of that time and some of that money to create a project of your own, to work strategically with a few mentors, like a teacher. So for example, if you're a singer, is there a voice teacher you enjoy working with? Maybe instead of spending thousands and thousands of dollars on tuition going to a prestigious summer program, or like a pay to sing, we call them, maybe you want to take a couple extra lessons, or maybe you've been taking a lesson once a month or every 2 weeks. Maybe you want to like really hone in on some of the technical things you're working on or on repertoire and carve out some time for a few months. Again, maybe take that summer time, and instead of it being once a month or twice a month, maybe you want to say, no, I'm going to invest and work with this teacher that I have a relationship with, that I feel like we're doing good work, and really double down and work very hard and concentrated. Maybe you want to supplement that with working, again, in sort of a concentrated way with a coach or someone who can help you work on repertoire interpretation or languages or audition strategies or things like that, so that you have some really good additions to your repertoire, maybe making some good samples. So, that's another thing you could invest comparatively, compared to tuition of a big program, a little bit of money. Still probably a couple $100 in a recording session with an engineer who can get high quality video and audio of you. Or maybe you do one or the other. Maybe you feel pretty good about your cell phone video, but you want the audio to be good. So you set up your cell phone to take a really good shot, but then you pay for a high quality audio engineer. So then you walk away with, you've worked on this repertoire, now you have some really good samples. In a lot of ways, that can be more helpful to the next stage of your career than some of the things you might be doing at some of these programs, especially if you have already had some training, like through an undergrad program or through a festival in the past. How much more are you really going to get out of spending a bunch of money and a bunch of time somewhere? Another thing that I would encourage you to consider is creating sort of a project that is a showcase project, maybe a recital or a performance of some kind, right, with other people, with colleagues, that represent some of the work you're the most passionate about. So again, a lot of times we get stopped, maybe especially as singers, being like, oh no, I'd have to pay a pianist, Okay, well, even if you have to pay a pianist, let's compare it. Let's compare it to the cost of one of those expensive summer programs, one of those pay to sings. You could pay for a lot of rehearsal hours before you even get close to what that tuition and travel is going to cost, right? Pick out some repertoire you want to do. Look at chamber music, look at vocal duets, look at things that other performers in your network would like to do. And you may find that they can partner with you and you can all pool resources, and rather than hiring a bunch of people, work together to put on a chamber music concert or a concert version of an opera with piano reduction or something like that, where many people are involved who are invested in the project, who you don't need to pay, right? Maybe there's a few things you need to pay, like a venue, maybe a pianist, maybe a teacher or coach. But if you spread those costs out and then you get in return the fact that you've networked with people, that's something you would do at that summer festival, right? You've networked with people, you've made some projects happen, you've learned new rap. Those are all things you would do at that festival. You've also practiced marketing, practiced ticketing, figured out some things about those platforms, about how to sell tickets, about how to reach out to the press. If you want some mentorship in that, why not get a few business lessons, or music business coaching is another word for that, right? Work with somebody who maybe is not necessarily the same person who's working with you on your technique, but who can give you some tips on writing a good press release, on planning your marketing strategy, on doing audience outreach, right? So that you don't have to start from scratch, like learn from someone. You could take a little bit of money and invest in that, and that can be something you're doing for just a few $100s, which is really not that much compared to those tuition, of those programs. And then you walk away, you've built your resume, you have stuff on your website calendar, you get some samples, and you've worked with people. And maybe you've started to build an audience. Maybe you've started to build some relationships with the press. Maybe even if nobody came to review, you figured out how to email the press. You have a list of press contacts in your area, and the next time you send something to them, it won't be so hard. And also they'll recognize your name, because a lot of times with things like getting media attention, they might need to know about you a little bit and be invited to several events that you're putting on before they go, okay, this is someone who's doing stuff that's cool. I remember this one before, right? So you're starting to build up that history, and you're going to learn a lot of things that are really practical in terms of how to produce events, how to build an audience, how to get your name out there, right? So, a lot of times the hope is, well, if I just go to this festival, I'll meet the right people, I'll have a lesson with that famous teacher, they'll open a door for me, I'll finally have a magical experience in a masterclass where I'll fix this thing in my technique I'm worried about, or maybe they'll finally tell me the piece I'm supposed to be learning that would open up all the doors in the auditions. And I'll be honest, in my experience, that does not happen. That's not something that is very common. More likely, out of those experiences, you're going to make some friends, some colleagues, you maybe get some new tips from a teacher or a mentor, someone who gives you a different perspective that helps your long-term growth. You're going to build some performance experience. You might get a couple cool photos or a recording. You're going to add a line to your resume. But if you look at all of those things are very similar to the things you're going to get from producing your own project. So I would just encourage you, if you're at that point, as a lot of us are at different times, of thinking, gosh, I wonder if I just dumped a bunch of money and time into something, if I just took 3 months off of work, if I just, took the plunge and did it, right? Would everything magically open up for me? I would also encourage you to think about some of these other alternatives that could give you a lot of the same benefits, or even maybe in some ways more benefits, honestly, for much less financial impact, and also allow you to learn some skills that a lot of times those festivals aren't going to teach you. Because if you go and plug into a festival where there's a concert series where you're the young artist being featured, they're not going to put you to work mentoring you on marketing. They're not going to put you to work and mentor you on reaching out to the press or audience building. They might send you on a concert to sing at a school or at a retirement home, or out in the community at a farmer's market or something, but you're not learning how you book those gigs. You're not learning how you connect with the people who are looking for outreach performers, right? And instead, you're going to spend a lot more money to do a lot of the things you already know how to do. You probably already know how to practice. You probably already know how to learn some music and put it on. You probably already know how to show up at a rehearsal and be told what to do by a coach or a conductor. What happens if you're in a chamber music rehearsal with your colleagues? Who leads that rehearsal? How do you give feedback to one another so that you make this the best performance you possibly can? How do you absorb feedback from other people? How do you kindly, but also professionally, and so that you make the music well and the best it can be? How do you offer that feedback and figure out where you're going to meet in the middle if people have different interpretation decisions? All of those things are honestly not going to happen in most festival situations, but they're way more applicable, in my experience, to the life of a performer in this field. So I hope this was maybe interesting or different or inspiring. I'm curious what you think about these ideas. Does it seem interesting? Does it seem really intimidating? Have you heard this before? Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. And if you have other questions you'd like me to talk about in a future video, you can put those in the comments too. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.